Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Lumi Knits podcast. I'm Hayley. I live in central Victoria in Australia and I love to knit and sew and tell you all about it. You can find me on Instagram at lumi.knits or on Ravelry at lumiknitsx, all lowercase, one word. I post every now and then on Instagram and I keep my Ravelry pages reasonably up to date. So if you're interested in what I'm doing, you can check me out over there. Just wanted to say a huge thank you to all the people who like and comment and subscribe. It makes my day every time I get a comment. I don't have a knitting group, so this pretty much is my knitting group, and I really enjoy getting your feedback and just people saying hello. It really does make my day, so thank you to all the people that do that. It's been quite a couple of weeks since my last podcast. I was frantically knitting away on a pair of socks for my uncle, trying to get them ready for the 2nd of May when we were going to have a little birthday get together, which didn't end up happening because everyone in my house got sick with a cold. And it feels like this is not just any cold, this feels like a real cold. It's not COVID. My husband went and got COVID tested. He's a teacher, so he was off work for a couple of days. My kids have been off kinder, which means that I've been trying to work from home while they've been around, which isn't ideal. I don't like to work when they're around. I like to give them my attention, but it's a bit tricky when you've got commitments and they're there. So I was working a lot at night and that kind of thing. Anyway, so I'll talk more about the socks in a minute. My voice is a bit croaky, a bit husky. Throat, my mouth's pretty dry, so I'll try and keep the annoying cold sounds down to a minimum. Hopefully I don't get a case of the sneezes. The kids and I went on a little adventure yesterday just because we were so sick of being cooped up, and I was driving along and started sneezing, and you know the feeling when you're driving along and you start sneezing and you feel like you're just going to have the biggest, most explosive car wreck of your life, or maybe that's just me. But anyway, I was trying to drive and sneezing, trying to keep my eyes open. Hopefully I don't start sneezing. Anyway, that's beside the point. So today's Mother's Day, which is why I've got a little bit of time and space to record. My husband's taking the kids off for the morning. I think they've gone to the skate park and gone to do all the wonderful dad things that they like to do. They brought me a beautiful breakfast in bed and gave me some gifts. So I wanted to say a happy Mother's Day to all people who care for children. Not everyone has got their own kids, but they care for other kids, or they're amazing aunties or grandparents. So happy Mother's Day to everyone who cares for children. It's an amazing job and such a valuable job and a great job. So happy Mother's Day. And also a big happy Mother's Day to my mum. Happy Mother's Day, Sue. I love you to bits. Mum watches all my podcasts and comments on all of them. And I think my grandma does too. So happy Mother's Day to you too, Marnie. I also love you to bits. So happy Mother's Day. I'm going to get started. So I did manage to finish my uncle's socks, and I finished them on the 6th of May, which if you watch my last podcast, you will know is mine and my uncle's birthday. So I worked really hard on my birthday to get them finished, just because it felt like a nice time to get them completed. I can't see what I'm recording here, so hopefully when I show things I'm showing the whole lot, but it's a bit hit and miss, so cross your fingers. These socks are knitted in a DK weight yarn. That's an 8-ply for you guys in Australia. I knitted them on 3.5mm 9-inch circular needles because that's how I knit pretty much all my socks. Well, all my socks. I don't really enjoy doing magic loop. So they're fairly basic. They're just a vanilla sock. I use a twisted rib cuff because I think it looks really neat and tidy and gives it a bit of definition. 50 rows for the leg. It's a eye of partridge heel flap and gusset, and then 48 rows for the foot. The men in my family are tall and they have very big feet, which is why this looks like a pair of flippers. So it takes a while to knit these, which is probably why I only ever knit them in DK, because if I was going to knit these in fingering or 4-ply, it would take me years. I'm not a fan of Kitchener. Every time I feel like I'm going okay with Kitchener, I have this little internal conversation with myself, giving a bit of props. You're doing it. you're doing a great job. Look at your Kitchener. This is perfect. Keep going. Keep going. You got it. And then I lose where I'm up to. And it feels pretty much impossible to unpick a Kitchener. So I just try and avoid it at all costs. So I use a technique called socks without ears, and you can find this on Modern Daily Knitting. Their picture always has a much more rounded toe than mine. Mine always end up a little pointy, but that's okay because once they're on the foot you can't tell. So that's the toe. They're just a nice plain vanilla sock. My uncle, the last pair of socks I gave him, he adored and was over the moon about, so that's why I really wanted to knit him another pair for his birthday this year. They'll be nice and warm. He loves going for long walks, so they'll keep his feet cozy and hopefully be reasonably hard wearing. He should be able to just throw those in the washing machine. I think that the Bendigo tweed is machine washable. If not, he's just going to throw it in the washing machine anyway, so cross your fingers for him. Speaking of machine washable, the jumper that I'm wearing is one of the very first ones I ever knit. It's a Weekender by Andrea Mowry, and from the time I cast this on to now, it has been one of my favourite garments. I love the colour, I love the shape. It was just the absolute joy of my existence, this sweater. But this is a warning to all people who are either new to knitting or, you know, are a bit like me and can be a bit slap happy with their laundry. Make sure that when you have worn your knits and you need to launder them, that you don't put them in the bottom of your washing basket, because there's a chance that they're going to get scooped up with your regular washing and go in the machine with your regular washing and end up felted like this one. Even though it's felted and the shape is quite bizarre now, I still really love this. It's so nice and warm and cozy for winter. I love the colour, and I've got a real emotional attachment to this sweater. So if you take nothing else away from my podcast, be careful with your knits in the laundry. Moving on, I've got a new cast on. I've been watching Needles at the Ready quite a lot, and those guys do the most amazing shawls. I've always been really resistant to shawls because I sort of have them in my head as those big triangles that you old Victorian ladies wore, and even though I know it's not true, that's just the perception I've had. But I've been watching Kevin and Ray with their beautiful shawls. I think it was the Paris Toujours one by Isabell Kraemer, could be wrong, and I've just thought to myself, I need to be knitting shawls because that is beautiful. So I decided that I was going to choose a Stephen West design because I love his work. I'm not always, you know, I'm not a really bright coloured person, believe it or not. I like fairly muted things and not into super crazy patterns or textures, but I feel like Stephen West designs help me to be a bit more creative with what I create and what I wear and how I wear it. So I thought it would be good if I could knit one of his. So I chose one of his older ones. I think he's actually just re-released it in his classics collection, called the Samen Shawl, and I've used everything from my stash, so I didn't have to buy any yarn for this. I just used what I already had because I've got the most random collection of things, because I love op shopping, which is, you know, thrift shopping if you're not in Australia, and so I find little bits and pieces and I just throw it in the drawers and hope for the best. And I've used quite a bit of that in this knit, so I'm going to show you what I've got so far. I'm only, I think, about 4 sections in, and I'll talk to you about the yarns that I'm using as well. So I'll put it on the front. This first section here is 2 yarns, or it's all 2 yarns held together to create a mild effect. So you change them, so it goes like A, B, B, C, C, D. So you hold the same yarn for 2 sections and then you add the next one in. I don't know if that's a good explanation. So this first one is a Sheepy's Our Tribe in 50 Shades of Ply, which I originally bought to use in a shifty sweater, but I'll talk more about that. And it's held with a mohair, a Twilly's mohair. Now this one is a thrift shop find. I got a whole bag of this. I think I got about 8 skeins for $2, and it is 80% kid mohair, 20% nylon, so I think that's a pretty good buy. I'll hold this up and hope you can see it. It's a Twilly's Magic, and it is, I think, a vintage one because the label looks quite old. And it's just in this nice kind of soft green. I was going to try and make like a really loose knit lace poncho out of this, but I decided to use it for the shawl instead. So the first section is this one held with the Sheepies, Our Tribe in 50 Shades of Ply. Then the next section, which is like this short row section. Oh, yeah. So in the short row section, I dropped the mohair and added in a Bendigo Woolen Mills Classic in Java, which is kind of like a mushroomy, purpley, pinky colour. And then in the next section, you drop the Sheepies, and I've picked up a different Sheepies, which was also originally for my shifty sweater, and that one's called Marie, and I love that one. And then the next section is another short row section, and that is a Peyton's Merino Dreamtime, held with the Sheepies Marie. It's a bit confusing. All the details are on my Ravelry page if you're interested. But this is what I've got so far. It's a bit hard because it's kind of all bunched up, but I really like the way it's looking. I did get a bit concerned about this section with the lighter grey because it was looking really muted before, and now the grey is just kind of a bit out there. But in the next section, I'm holding it with the mohair, which I think will kind of just balance it out a little. But I won't know until it's done, I'd say, if I like it or not. If I don't like it, it's just going to be a really nice warm shawl to wear when I go on walks with the kids and things like that. So it doesn't matter, it's going to come up great anyway, I'm sure. So I'm really enjoying that pattern. I need to write it out row by row because I can't keep track when it says, you know, repeat row 2 and 3 4 times. No, I can't do that. That's too much. So I need to write it out, and I've done that, and I'm just, you know, writing it out each time. Just a lot of copying and pasting, which is fine. I just tick them off as I go, which also gives me a sense of achievement. So that's a winner for me. I was going to use the Java, the Bendigo Woolen Mills Java and the Sheepies Our Tribe to make a junction sweater. So the Sheepies Our Tribe was originally bought to make a shifty sweater, and that was just the biggest disaster of my knitting career. I tried, I think, 4 times and pulled it out each time because I just couldn't get gauge. I couldn't get the right fit. It was never going to work. So I gave up on that. And then I was going to use the Sheepies and the Bendigo Woolen Mills Classic in 5-ply in Java to make a junction sweater, also by Andrea Mowry. And then I got a little bit real with myself, and I'm never going to knit a fingering weight jumper. Well, not in the foreseeable future. I don't have the time. It'll take me years to do it, and I don't have the time. So also I'm not really a delicate person. I like sort of chunky things and big things, so fingering is not my friend. I'll use it for socks and maybe small things, but I don't think a sweater is in my future for that. So that was a little realization I had. The other work in progress that I've got is I picked up my Pengweeno, because now that I've finished my Pengweeno, I feel a bit more confident in where this is going. I feel like it's not just going to be this endless train of ends and textures and directions. I feel like it's actually a lot more cohesive now that I've got an understanding of it. So even though the Pengweeno was kind of Pengweeno, the little version, was kind of fiddly and it wasn't my favourite thing to knit, I feel like it's given me a really great direction to go in for my Pengweeno. So I'm going to attempt to show it. Please keep in mind I can't see what I'm showing, and it's huge, so I'll do my best, but it might not work. I've been knitting on this in bed, and I managed to get it out on the couch. I used it like a blanket while I was watching TV last night. So this is where I'm up to. This is the front section here, and I've just been working on this arm. So it's like a seed stitch, and it's easy, repetitive, back and forth. The other side isn't even joined at the shoulder. It's just this endless parade of yarn and knitting, and it'll get there, but it'll just take some time and some work. I want to show the back because I'm still in love with the back of this. We've got these welts here and this beautiful coloured section at the back, and then there's the seed stitch. Oh, I just love this part, it's really nice. Anyway, I've been working on my Pengweeno, and there's an end in sight. It was, before I just couldn't see an end, it was just endless, which is what not being able to see an end means. But now I've finished my Pengweeno, I know where I'm going, so I'm a bit excited about my Pengweeno. My other whip is my poor, sad, lonely Felix. It's still up in the same spot that it was last time. I don't think I've touched it. I'm a bit resistant to the magic loop for the sleeves. Even though I did use magic loop when I was doing my uncle's socks, for the first time ever, I didn't try and do the heel flapped gusset on 9-inch circulars, and it changed my life because it was so much easier. And I'll never go back to trying to do the heel flap and gusset on 9-inch circulars because it's ridiculous, it's tiny. So maybe next time I do pick up the Felix, I might be a little more accepting of the 9-inch circulars, accepting of the magic loop instead of the 9-inch circulars. I haven't touched any other projects. I did pull out a pair of socks that I was just not feeling, but it's just balls of yarn now, so it's probably not much interest to you. Yeah, so I thought I might try and bring in something a little bit new in this podcast. I've been looking through my Ravelry library, and I have got so many patterns that I've purchased and haven't knit and have no intention of knitting now, since I've had my revelation about fingering weight sweaters. So I've made a bit of a decision that I'm not going to buy any patterns just sort of off the top of my head. If I'm going to buy a pattern, I'm going to make sure that I'm really going to knit it and that kind of thing, because otherwise I'm just wasting money that could be spent on better things and other things. That being said, I am going to be buying the Tecumseh pattern by Caitlin Hunter because I have some yarn coming for that, which is a Mother's Day gift from my daughter. I'm going to be knitting that in cream and gold and a sort of navy grey, if that's a colour, navy grey. I've seen this knit up a lot and it just looks so beautiful, and it's right up my alley. It's sort of an oversized, sort of slouchy, comfy sweater with just a really nice colourwork motif through it, and I'm keeping it pretty much in keeping with the colours that the designer used. So hopefully I don't have to make all those neck mods again like I did in the Soldotna, but I'll have to wait and see. That also, the other pattern that I'm going to purchase is the Lodestar pattern. I've got some pictures up on the tablet. Oh, that was my notes. The Lodestar is a pom-pom pattern, and it is absolutely stunning. Ever since I first saw it come up in my Ravelry feed, I've been smitten with it, and I'll just look at it because it's so pretty. So when this becomes available, I'm going to buy it, and I will buy the yarn to knit it. I'm going to try and show it on a tablet, so hopefully you can see there. It's kind of a lacework yoke, just a straightforward sort of jumper with a lacework yoke, and it's absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to see the pattern. It's knit in DK, so don't worry, I made sure of that. So I will purchase that one when it comes up. So I've got 2 patterns that I'm going to need to purchase, and then I'm not buying any more patterns. I've started looking through Ravelry for some sort of free patterns that interest me, so I thought I might show a couple of them. They're not going to be knit by the next podcast, I can guarantee that, but I will hopefully get to them along the way. The first one I wanted to show, and I'm really hoping that I'm getting the pictures in here, but if not, I'll link to all the patterns below and you'll be able to find them in my Ravelry, is the Leni hat by Isabell Kraemer. This one I think looks really beautiful. At the moment I'm just interested in knitting sort of small textured things, and this hat ticks all the boxes. That one is in a fingering, I think, but it looks really pretty. The socks that I wanted to show are the Thunder and Lightning socks, and this is by Dawn Henderson for Fancy Tiger Crafts. Again, these are all free patterns on Ravelry, and I love these. They're just little shorty socks with some bobbles in them, and I think they just look adorable. So I want to knit those. And the final thing that I'm thinking about is some mitts. I've never knit mitts before because I've never had a need for them or a use for them. But since we've moved, it's much chillier here than it was where we used to live. And I think that these will be really handy when we go for walks or bike riding and stuff. So these mitts are the Friends mitts by Dani Sunshine on Ravelry. And I think they're fairly straightforward. So because I've never knit mitts before, I'm just hoping that these ones are a good start for me. And then I've also saved some textured ones. So they're the things that I've come across in some of the things that I've come across that are free patterns in Ravelry that should keep me busy for a while, amongst all the other whips that I have. I don't know when I'll cast these on, but one day probably. I've got to get through my enormous yarn stash of bits and bobs, so that'll be fun. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because I think my family's just gotten home. So I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you next episode. Thank you. Bye.